This is John Colo with OKRod.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you in my beautiful garden here in May. And I wanted to bring this episode to you. It's very important to me. It's basically sharing my style of eating a raw vegan diet. Now, when I say raw vegan, I mean 75% or more of my calories are actually coming from raw living foods. Also in the raw vegan community is, raw vegan in many cases is synonymous with health. People think raw vegan, they think raw vegan is the ultimate way to get the highest level of health. And honestly, I used to believe that. There are many raw vegan influencers out there that may say many shorts that may try to condense the raw vegan diet and make it very simple and uncomplicated. Like, cooked food is the root of all evil. You need to go raw. Or you need to clean your bowels and all your problems will go away. They'll just say so many different things that I personally don't believe are correct, and it is really difficult to make health simple when in fact, the further I go along in my journey, the further and more I learn from the science and through experience and through the experience of others that health can be quite complex and is not as easy as just removing all the cooked food or processed food or even animal foods out of your diet to have superior health. The other thing I also believe is that we are all uniquely different. Not only our genes, but also are the microbes that live within us. So this will share my latest beliefs about eating a healthy raw vegan diet. And the title of this on my whiteboard is How Raw Vegan Can Sabotage Your Health. The reason for this is because, people think raw vegan is the ultimate way to health. If I eat raw, all my health problems will go away. And if raw vegan teachers teach that, you should run, honestly. Because raw vegan, while it can help many situations, it also, of course, is dependent on your situation and actually how you do the raw vegan diet. There's many ways to do the raw vegan diet that can get better or worse results, honestly. And what that comes down to is simply this. It's what is your level of health, right? Standard American diet, your level of health, and this is like an old-fashioned thermometer, or a blood pressure meter where the temperature rises up to the top. And will I say the raw vegan diet is right at optimal? And my answer is simply, while it may be able to get some people to optimal, of course, if they do all the testing to ensure that they are in optimal health besides just, I feel healthy, I'm healthy, therefore I have optimal health. Hey, you want to get your blood markers checked, you want to get, I recently had full body MRI to make sure there's nothing going on with me. I've recently had some ultrasounds. I got a DEXA scan to make sure my visceral fat and bone density is good. I've gotten copious amounts of different blood tests, to ensure that I'm doing it healthily. Of course, I've also gotten different kinds of microbiome tests as well as oral microbiome tests, which is yet another level of health that I'll probably be going into in the near future. All these are very important factors of health that many raw vegans just don't even take into consideration. As a matter of fact, some raw vegans actually encourage you not to get any kind of medical testing because I believe if you did, right, you might see the program they're teaching doesn't work. Otherwise, why would they be so scared of getting some kind of medical testing? Nonetheless, about standard American diet. Basically the standard American diet is going to give you some of the poorest health. The standard American diet, as said by Dr. Joel Fuhrman, could be designed by Al-Qaeda to kill people, right? Because it does. And any improvement over the standard American diet, people go carnivore, they get all these amazing healing benefits. You could go, whole food plant-based, get amazing healing benefits. You could go raw vegan, get some amazing healing benefits. That being said, even if you just go vegan and it's still standard American diet, but vegan style, so it's highly processed vegan foods, you're probably not going to see any significant health benefits. But when you start getting rid of all the processed food, the highly processed food, the ultra processed food, which I discussed in my last video that didn't get a lot of views, is cooked food addictive. And the whole point of that video was basically to share that, I believe that certain cooked foods are not addictive. Of course, most of the cooked foods that are out in society are quite addictive because, in my opinion, they're ultra processed, adding things like salt, sugar, fat, oil, cooking them in high temperatures to create extra crunchy and tasty things to crunch on and eat that actually will get you addictive. That being said, I steam some purple sweet potatoes last night and I'm eating them and it's not like, oh, this tastes amazing. Like, hey, man, I had ripe papaya early in the day, which tastes a whole lot better. But, to me, it's not all about flavor, as I'll get into in this episode. So actually, without further ado, let's get into it, because my goal is for optimal health. And I found, for me personally, not saying for you, that raw foods got me pretty close, but now I'm incorporating some heat processed foods to get me even closer to optimal health, because optimal health is more than just my health right now as I sit, but more importantly, it's my future health that I have not yet experienced. So let's get into this episode. So the traditional model of raw veganism is raw vegan is best for human body. Don't need non-raw food. Don't need any cooked food, right? Why should we eat anything else that doesn't feed us? Starches doesn't feed us, is what some raw vegans will say. Cooked foods, we're not designed for that, is what some raw vegans will say. And, there's also many different other dogma sayings that, like, we need to clean our bowels to be in a raw vegan diet, or that, health is vitality minus obstruction, and the cooked foods and other things are causing obstruction. While these models maybe have some truth to them on some levels, they shouldn't be the basis of a raw vegan diet, in my opinion, if you are going for true health. Of course, when some of these sayings and some of these beliefs were made up, it was before the microbiome was even discovered. I'm specifically talking about the gut microbiome in this episode. So, traditional model of raw veganism, or old school, how I was taught, how basically most influencers online are teaching this to this day, is the traditional model that raw vegan is best for the human body, therefore we should eat only raw vegan. I mean, that's a summary, and that's made simplified, which I don't tend to like to simplify things. Nonetheless, my updated model, and this is my personal updated model, I'm not saying it should be your updated model, but I'm saying that you may want to consider it, because this is the direction that I'm going. The updated model is, hey, raw vegan feeds my body, right? Which is great. So, hey, the majority of my food that I still consume is raw vegan. I eat 80% to 90% of my calories on a daily basis raw vegan. I have 2 vegetable juices a day, a nice large fruit meal a day, and I have fruits and salads and raw soups throughout the day, and then I'll have some heat processed vegetables with mushrooms, usually, and maybe beans and rice in some cases, in the evening, in general. Last night I had actually steamed artichokes. But nonetheless, raw vegan feeds my body. That's why I still eat predominantly raw. And other plant foods feed my microbiome. So while raw foods can also feed your microbiome, raw foods may not be the optimal diet for a microbiome, because as humans, we've evolved on eating heat processed starches. If you believe that, there's scientific evidence that, that's why our brains grew bigger, because of the starches that we now were able to cook, and therefore we literally grew up on the planet eating starches, and then our microbiome and the bacteria within us basically adapted to thrive on some of these different heat processed foods we're eating. And then, that brought us our health. That's like a short summary. So that's my belief now, is that raw vegan can feed my body, but hey, I want to feed more than my body, right? So I want to also feed my microbiome, because they are optimal for my health based on the science, if you believe the science. So why should you eat for your microbiome is the question. So why? Okay, so inside us, we have 22,000 functional human genes, right? But also, they did the, human gene project, where they had to discover all the different genes in the human body, and they figured out if we find the gene that turns on and off cancer, we could turn on and off cancer. Of course, genes affect your eye color, your skin color, and so many other different situations. Your potential of getting breast cancer, for example. But here's the thing. You thought, 22,000 is functional human genes, that's a lot, but there's 2 million functional microbial genes in our body due to our microbiome in our gut and the microbes that live on and within us. So, one of the sayings that have been said, and I know you've heard it, is that the genes load the gun, but your lifestyle pulls the trigger. So have you ever thought about why that is true? The genes load the gun, and you have 22,000 genes that are you, but your lifestyle pulls the trigger. Now, how does your lifestyle pull the trigger? Well, your lifestyle will modulate your microbial genes, which then can pull the trigger, right? If you don't have the right microbes, you can be more susceptible, as we will learn, to different diseases, right? So I'm just like putting all these things together, and like I don't know anybody other raw vegans that are even doing this, or maybe even not many plant-based influencers or vegan influencers are even discussing this either. So I don't know, man. This is just my health journey I'm sharing with you because I almost lost my life when I was younger. And that's why I take this stuff quite serious. And yes, I think differently. I'm proud to say that. All right. So why? That's why. And then, why also, besides these factors, is it important to, build up a healthy microbiome? Number one, a healthy microbiome will improve your internal terrain. I'm not going to discuss Pasteur versus Biochomp, but I know a lot of you guys believe in the terrain theory model of health. And one of the reasons why the microbiome is good is because it improves our internal terrain. Our microbiome makes up a large percentage of our terrain. And when you improve your microbiome, it makes us more resilient to infection. And I mean, this is proven. And once again, I'm not making these things up. I put studies down below this video to, I think, 3 or 4 main studies that I'm referencing where a lot of this information is drawn from. It makes you more resilient to infection. So for example, when the virus, and I won't name the virus, we all know what the virus was that made us stay home for several years, which was kind of insane. But, after the fact, they've done testing on people that had more worse situations of the virus, even, took them out of this world. And what they found is that they had perturbed microbiome. They had less diversity. Certain species were missing, and or they had pathnobionts. Pathnobionts are basically bacteria that live within you that basically could flip and turn bad. I mean, that's my very simple, non-scientific analogy of it. I'm sure it goes a lot deeper. But the pathnobionts, if you have too many, they get out of control. They could kind of go bad and then take your health in a bad direction. That's why it's so important to have a specific study linked down below to this very thing, so you know that I'm speaking with you guys the truth, all right? Number 2, your microbiome can boost your immune system, right? I almost lost my life because of failing immune system. I know a lot of you guys and girls are dealing with an immune system that's just not working properly. If you get allergies, if you have asthma, if you have things like eczema or other skin conditions such as psoriasis, those can be kind of autoimmune or immune system situations that I believe can be improved. Also, of course, based on the science, can be improved by improving your microbiome. Number 3, of course, the microbiome also helps us digest our food. Going back to number 1, right? Oh, our bodies can't digest starch, right? Oh, or saying our bodies can't digest fiber, so we should just live on juices, right? And so here's the thing, right? While we don't digest fiber, right, our microbiome digests the fiber. That's very important to consider, because when our microbiome digests the fiber, it makes nutrients such as short-chain fatty acids, peptides, amino acids, organic acids, vitamins, and more, which actually could help rebuild our gut lining, which also gives us nutrition that we wouldn't normally be eating, right? So, I mean, where are you going to get propionate acetate or butyrate? I mean, I know they have some butyrate supplements, but it's not relatively absorbed that good if you eat it. But if you eat fibers and resistant starches and other prebiotic foods, our gut microbiome will make that for you. And some of the testing I've seen from raw vegans is that raw vegans may tend to make lower butyrate short-chain fatty acids, maybe due to the restrictions of the diversity of the diet they're eating. All right. So next up, last one is number 4 is disease prevention. This is very important to me. Why did I get sick in the first place? Because I just ate haphazardly. Well, I mean, I thought I read ingredient labels, right? And why do some others in the raw vegan diet get into the raw vegan diet? Because of a health crisis. I know there's people out there that didn't get into the raw vegan diet for a health crisis. But, for those of us that did get into this diet to turn our health around so that we could live healthier, so that we could live free of disease in the future, this point is really critically important. There's a study, once again, I link it down below. I'm not making this stuff up, right? Disease prevention, right? It is shown that the microbiome plays an impact on diseases such as IBS and IBD. I have personal friends that got into raw vegan for IBS and IBD. And they got into raw vegan because it healed them. And yes, I'd agree that over a standard American diet, eating raw foods, which does in fact feed your microbiome, could bring your microbiome level up, bring you closer to optimal health, but you still may not have the optimal or ideal microbiome, you know. In addition, you know, microbiome could also help with things like liver disease and prevent potentially liver disease, cardiovascular disease, immune-related diseases, even things like cancer. And, you know, there's also other diseases that you could consider, such as anxiety and even obesity, can be helped through microbes as shown in the science. So that's why this is very important to me, because not only do I want to live healthy today, but in the future, I want to basically prevent the diseases from occurring, right? And be proactive in my health. And this is something that most raw vegans, especially if they didn't get into this for their health, they won't ever tell you, in my opinion. All right, so what is the goal? The goal is to increase the gut microbiome species. And how you know how many you have? Well, you should get tested to know. Link down below to my video where I actually get tested. In my first test, I think I had around 750 or 725 diversity scale. I then tried to just enhance and eat more diversity of raw food specifically. And for like 6 months, my diversity score did not change. I'm like, this is not good. I need to do something else, because just simply increasing my diversity of raw foods was not good enough for me. Not going to say it's not going to be good enough for you. And then I started eating some heat processed foods and adding some other, you know, prebiotic fibers into my diet. And now I've gotten my diversity up to approximately 950, which is approximately a 25% increase, which I'm feeling more comfortable about, because I believe that we should be around 1,000. And some standard American diet eaters may have 100 or even 200 diversity, which definitely is not good. Now, the other goal besides increasing your microbial diversity is ensuring you have the proper keystone species in place and in the proper or correct ranges. This is very important. You know, the keystone, if you guys know, like the whatever arches in Rome or whatever, when they built the arches and they had like the bricks that like went up at the base, and if you took these bricks out, the whole arch falls because it kind of leans on each other. That's what the keystone species are in our gut microbiome. We have keystone species, maybe some bifidobacteria, maybe some Akkermansia, Roseburia. There's a few other species that are very critical to have, because they do very critical things to hold our microbiome together and to ensure that we have a good ecosystem. And that's another reason for having a diverse microbiome, is because when you have more of a diversity in the ecosystem, your ecosystem will be more stable and more resilient, you know, to some of the different diseases, as well as increasing your longevity and health outcome in the future, based loosely on some of the science. All right. So that's the goal. So then how do we achieve this goal? So it's very simple, right? I mean, if you don't want to start eating heat processed foods like I do, you may not have to, but you should be doing some of these other things for sure. So number one, you want to increase your whole food plant diversity. You know, gut microbiome, quote unquote, experts will say you want to eat 30 different types of plant foods in a week. And I would expand that, because the person I follow says to eat 40 types of plant foods in a week. And actually, furthermore, I would expand that even more than just the 30 to 40 different types of plant foods. I also believe that they should be processed in different ways. You know, there's studies that show when you feed laboratory animals, I'm not a big fan of laboratory animal testing, you know, a raw sweet potato, it actually reduced the diversity of their microbiome. But when you fed them cooked sweet potato, it increased their diversity of microbiome. So I also believe that the way you process your food, including it, heating it or not heating it, even things like blending it, blending your blueberries with bananas, you know, that's going to, you know, not feed your microbiome as much, because you're reducing some of the polyphenols in there, which has been shown to feed our microbiome, you know. But of course, you guys could believe whatever you want, but I will say that you want to increase our whole food plant diversity. You know, if you're on a very restrictive diet, because you do see bananas, dates, and romaine lettuce every day, that's really not good in my opinion. In the olden days of my raw foods career, I thought eating simply was better because it was better for my digestive system. So while eating simply may be easier to digest because your body and your microbiome has gotten used to digesting those, you need to challenge your microbiome to get it out of its comfort zone, to digest other things, to create more diversity, because maybe you don't have the bacteria that's there to digest potatoes because you haven't eaten them for 25 years like me. So when I first started eating some steamed or pressure cooked potatoes, I didn't like just gorge on them, and I had like one. And I mean, I had some steamed and freeze dried organic sliced potatoes this morning, and once again I ate them, and it's like I didn't eat one and think I gotta eat the whole tray. If I made some kale chips with some salt that are raw and ate one, I'd probably eat the whole tray. But these plain steamed potatoes that were sliced and freeze dried, I eat one and I'm like, oh, well, I mean, that's neat and that's probably feeding my microbiome, but this is definitely not addicting for me. I mean, I'd like some of my friends that claim cooked foods are addicting to eat my steamed and freeze dried plain potatoes to tell me if they're addicted, and they eat one and now they just want to eat McDonald's. I don't know. Maybe they got some, eating food addiction issues that they formerly didn't deal with. I don't think that I have any of those personally, but that is also another reason for cooked food addiction is your belief system. Now, the other thing I will say is that do we need to heat process our food to create more diversity? So I'm saying when you are eating a raw vegan diet, you are limiting the plants you could eat. Obviously on a raw vegan diet, you're not going to eat kidney beans because kidney beans, even if you sprout them, are quite toxic. So you will be leaving out, in some cases, whole categories of food. That being said, I try to have an inclusive raw vegan channel and share with you guys the ways, if you guys want to stay raw and keep your raw label for whatever the reason, I share with you ways to still eat resistant starches on your raw vegan diet. Link down below to that. I try to share with you guys how to diversify your raw vegan diet. Link down below to that if I remember. By eating more than just fruits and vegetables, by eating sprouted grains and legumes, and even things like some mushrooms can be eaten raw, or even things like raw seaweeds or dehydrated seaweeds to, get more different kind of plant diversity in you. And of course, along with whole food plant diversity, I also include things like mushrooms, different types of mushrooms because they have essential fiber for our microbiome, as well as seaweeds, which are actually sea vegetables or sea plants. Of course, I do have raw vegan friends, and this is definitely the exception versus the rule. Most of my raw vegan friends that have gotten a microbiome test, they have not fared well in terms of their overall microbiome score, not as high as I believe a raw vegan should be based on all the dogmatic teachings that I've learned. Although there are exceptions where I have one set of raw vegan friends who have really kick-ass microbiome scores eating a raw vegan diet. So not to say that you can't do it raw vegan. I will say that it didn't work for me when I strive to eat raw vegan, and also my raw vegan friends that have a kick-ass microbiome score, they eat a lot different than most raw vegans out there. My personal belief also is that people that eat a high fruit diet also not going to have a optimal microbiome score and definitely tend on the lower range. That being said, I would love to see more data. So if you are eating mostly fruit and get a microbiome test, I would love to see your results. All right, next up is intermittent fasting. Wait, you're thinking, John, how does intermittent fasting help diversify and build a more resilient microbiome? So here's the thing you may not know on why intermittent fasting can actually improve your microbiome. Because when you eat a food, for example, say you eat, steamed sweet potatoes, right? There are bacteria in us that love to eat the resistant starch, right? So those bacteria eat all the resistant starch until it's all gone. Then all the resistant starch is gone, and now those bacteria can no longer feed. Those are like the primary digesters of the fiber resistant starch or other prebiotic fibers or foods that you're eating, right? But after those bacteria are done that ate the resistant starch, those bacteria then, I guess for lack of a better word, poop out the nutrients. So they poop out short chain fatty acids, amino acids, vitamins, whatever they're pooping out. And then there's secondary digesters. So some of the secondary digesters then eat what those primary digesters poop out. I mean, for lack of a better word. And then they go to town on all the things, all the poop of the bacteria and microbes that ate the resistant starch. And then after that, after those microbes finish what they're eating, right? they poop out stuff. And then there's tertiary digesters that then eat the next range of stuff that the next one's pooped out, right? And that's how complex our microbiome is. And it really boggles your mind when you start to think about it. But that's why it's very important to have, breaks in eating, because if you just keep filling your pie hole with food, the primary digesters will always get to eat, and then your secondary and tertiary digesters may get starved out, and then it also may lead to an imbalanced microbiome. So very important to have 12 to 14 hours between eating, to let some of those other digesters work. And of course, the optimal way to do this is to, stop eating after dinner and then sleep all night. Don't eat a couple hours before bed, and don't eat a few hours after you wake up, and you easily got 12 to 14 hours. All right, next up is number 3, eat a variety of fermented foods. They've done studies that show eating fermented foods can actually positively impact your inflammation levels even better than just eating a better variety of plant foods, or more variety or more fiber, right? So fermented foods, and eat a variety of fermented foods. And fermented foods may not be necessarily beneficial because of the live bacteria that are contained within them, but it's because the live bacteria actually acted upon those foods and digested it, and then once again made those metabolites that then secondary and tertiary digesters or microbes inside us will then feast on and love, right? So remember that also, because not many people are going to tell you this. And then also number 4 is get out in nature, touch nature, and have pets, right? So I'm here in my garden. I'm in nature. I'm in nature every single day in my backyard. Of course, my backyard has its own microbiome, which is great. I'm in here every day. But it's also good for me to get out to the local forest, the local desert landscape, the local area. And also, of course, I travel to visit nature and go on hikes. And more importantly, touch nature, because that's going to help bring in microbes into your sphere that you may not normally have if you stay inside in a cubicle or in your house all day. Very important to go out and live in nature. Hopefully you don't live in, some city where it's all polluted and stuff. Of course, also having pets, having like a dog is shown. I don't know if, having fish that you never touch would work unless maybe you touch them. But having a pet could also help bring in microbes into your home. My dog is coming out sniffing on stuff. He rolls and things, and he comes back inside, and then I pet him and kiss on him and stuff. That could also be beneficial for your microbiome. Link down below to another video where I made 20 ways to improve your microbiome, where I go further into this. Of course, another one, number 5, is minimize harmful exposures, including using antibacterials, hand sanitizers, antibacterial soaps, like cleaning everything with Lysol in your bathroom. Don't be a clean freak. Watch out for pesticides, herbicides, fungicides sprayed on your food. Glyphosate is insidious, and that has been shown to wreck your microbiome. While it may not hurt us, it definitely hurts our microbiome. And a lot of conventional foods are sprayed with glyphosate as a drying agent, such as wheat and even beans and chickpeas. So if you're buying non-organic, like hummus, right? Those chickpeas could have been sprayed with glyphosate, and then thereby potentially reducing your microbiome health, right? So I want you to be concerned about these things. And of course, don't over sterilize things. My mom, I grew up in an environment where she was like a clean freak and no spots on this and use antibacterial and everything. And almost kind of rebelled against that. And I still clean stuff. Certain things have to be clean. My kitchen have to be clean, because bad microbes aren't good. But also we don't want to be too much of a clean freak and a neat freak and get rid of all the microbes and just sanitize everything. That's also not good either. That's the 5th, and there's a 6th one hiding here because I didn't have room. And it's number 6 is actually supplement with prebiotic fibers and probiotics and spore-based probiotics. This is very important. I'll have a future episode on this. While I believe whole food plants are great and can give us lots of diversity, there are specific prebiotic foods such as XOS, FOS, GOS, HMOs that may not necessarily be in the foods in the high enough quantities to give us an optimal microbiome, especially if you're trying to rebuild keystone species and or have a greater diversity and or trying to, correct an imbalance. So I take a bunch, like at least a half dozen different prebiotic fiber supplements. You know, a lot of times people on carnivore diets will also do this because they're literally just not eating fiber. But nonetheless, I believe that a diversity is really great, and that is one of the things that has helped me increase my diversity aside from eating greater diversity of foods in my diet. Next thing I'll say is that I believe some probiotics can also be helpful if they are well researched and they're single strain and they have research and data behind them at the appropriate amounts. And of course, another thing that I've been taking a lot of are, of course, beneficial yeast products such as the Sabotage Boulardii. Link down below to my fermented juice drink you could make literally in a day to get some beneficial yeast within you that could also help regulate your microbiome. I've also been taking some spore-based microbes or probiotic bacteria, which I also believe could be helpful because unlike most bacteria that could get killed by your stomach acid, the spore-based will just float on right through the stomach acid, laugh, and then get to where they need to be. That being said, they are transient microbes. But I believe these transient microbes can positively impact our diversity and also help us potentially to bring back some of our keystone species. I hope to have more videos on the specific spore-based probiotics and also the prebiotic fibers in the future. So that pretty much brings me to the end of this episode today, where I share my, raw vegan 2.0, where I'm really considering my microbiome. I've also shared with you guys why that is important, basically for disease prevention, for your long-term health, and to bring up your level of health if it is not optimal on raw vegan, or if you want to try to even make it higher. And I think the main method you would know is through microbiome testing. If you have a kick-ass microbiome on your raw vegan diet, maybe you don't even need to watch my channel. But if your microbiome test is in the 60s or 70s, yes, you may be better than the average American, but could you get that up even higher, which will then impact your disease prevention and your long-term health outcome to boost your immune system, improve your terrain in the long run? That's personally what I'm going for, and that's why I spend my time to make these videos for you. I didn't need to make this video. I did all the research. I know all this stuff myself, but it's so important to me to share with you guys what I've learned, because my life was saved for a greater mission, for a greater calling, to make the world a better place, to share my research and what I've learned. So hopefully some of you that see a need or see that this is important information or makes logical sense to you, you could look up some of the studies linked down below. You could enact upon some of these, and you could have a stronger microbiome, a better microbiome score, and of course, have better health in the long run. So if you guys appreciated this episode, hey, please be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. Also, be sure to share this with raw vegan zealots that are really stuck in a box so that they can maybe see the raw vegan new updated model if they want to care or even try to take this into consideration with their raw vegan diet. Of course, there are ways you could do all these things and still maintain a high raw diet. You could eat whole foods all raw and then maybe supplement with some spore-based probiotics and some prebiotic fibers, even though those have probably been heat processed. There's so many different variations. I'm not going to say one way is best or right or wrong. I'm going to say I'm just trying to find the right way that works for me and share the options for you so you guys could, try some of these things if you see fit. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you don't miss out on my upcoming episodes. I'm coming out every 5 to 7 days. You never know where I'll show up or what you'll be learning on my YouTube channel. Make sure you click the little bell so you get notified as many videos come out. And also be sure to check my past episodes. The past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. Over 800 episodes at this time on this channel dedicated to teach you guys all about how to eat a healthier, plant-based, raw vegan diet. So with that, my name is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. We'll see you next time. And until then, remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're always the best.